You've heard the 13 words of Upside Down training as we do strengthening communities. But today we're going to talk about administration, which is not my favorite thing. But we realized when we did conferences and breakout sessions, often administration in strengthening community was the most popular breakout because people want to know how to do that. So we're not going to talk about techniques. Techniques are cutting edge one day and not the next, but we are going to talk about some basic principles in doing administration. And I like to think that we're putting the ministry back into administration. So let's go straight to the Bible. Principle number 1. Here it is. Let all things be done properly and in order in administration. That's straight from 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40. And you'll see that all over in ministry, even in the feeding of the 5,000, which we have referred to a number of times. Remember, everybody's running around, what do we do, what do we do? And Jesus tells them to sit down. And they get into groups of 50 and 100. So that's part of the ministry. It's often the part that's hard for visionaries to really think through. So it's really important to take time to look for people who can help in this area. Now that leads to principle number 2. It's very similar. Here's principle number 2. Let there be light. Be sure you can look everyone in the eye in what you do, whether it's the city or the government or anyone. You would do it in a responsible way. That's in your actions, also in your accounting. Now I can remember when we started out, we had our accounts on one page. I think we had $1,200 for the year, and so it wasn't so hard. But as your ministry grows, it's really important to have someone who's helping you have good accounting, responsible, and I saw how it could become a real problem for us because as things expand, it's hard to track everything, make sure you have those firewalls between designated accounts and so forth. And so be sure that you are doing good accounting, letting there be light. Okay, we're in administration. Here's number 3. This one might surprise you because we do so much that's people volunteer, they donate things, it's pro bono. But here's principle number 3. Free is not always a good deal. We worked with an architect from the Middle East, and he would say this in his own language from Iran, but I'm not sure exactly what it was, but he translated it this way: you get the soup you pay for. And so, of course, so much of what we do is people donating and volunteering things, but we do need a wise heart. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 says, a wise heart knows the right time and the right way to discern when we need to pay for something and when we don't. And no one told me that, and I wish they had. That's principle number 3. Let's go to principle number 4. Very simple, very important. We put it in administration. Remember the rule of 3. That means if it's a child and adult, there's a third person there. That means if you're in a gathering, especially if it's men and women, you have a third person. It's simple and safe, and it's really not that hard. I know it's a little bit controversial. It takes some trouble to do sometimes, but it's a very helpful thing to do what the Bible says, and that is avoid the appearance of evil. You never want to confuse someone who looks up to you. And that's the simplest things. Even when you're doing something, if you're talking to someone alone, keep the door open, or make sure there's a glass window, or go to be on the street or somewhere where people can see you. Just keep that rule of 3, and it will protect you from many things, and I believe now more than ever. So just be sure to have that. That's one of our administration principles we say over and over again. Which brings us to another principle. This is principle number 5. Very simple, but all these will help you in basic ways in terms of administration. Put it down in writing. Why? Because to be honest, people often don't hear what you say. We think they do, but they really don't. And I'm not saying you have to have some dissertation on people. It might just be a memo of understanding. When you're working with someone, whether it's a volunteer or someone that you have an assignment for, write it down because that helps. We'll sometimes say this, structure often relieves anxiety. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Here it is. Just put it down in writing. And I need to say that to myself. You know, you don't ever get beyond that. I almost thought I did. I said, you know, I've done this so long. I've supervised so many people. I don't need to do that. And I didn't do it with someone in my recent past. And their expectations were very different than mine, and it blew up in my face. So it is just very important, whether you're just beginning or have done this for a long time, put the things down in writing, and that will help you have good administration. Things are tough in the world, but remember, when the world is at its worst, we need to be at our best.